Hello and welcome to Thoughts and Updates, and here we are in a cold and frosty morning once again. If I tip this up, you'll see the frost that is all around the ground. Gap where there used to be a car where Kira left last night, and it is crisp but lovely morning here just after dawn in Scotland, which it's not that early, although it's getting earlier and earlier. Collected Keris from home yesterday, brought her up, and picking her up at 3:30 in the afternoon, it's still being light, is quite a thing just now as we go into February as of tomorrow. And I have to click submit on my self-assessment tax form, which is due for today. Haven't put it all in, and that's the excitement that comes with the current lockdown restrictions. It's been an exceptional week this week, and I'll come to why in a moment or so. Writing this week has been its usual interesting self, not so much as normal. No reviews this week. I haven't had a chance to sit and watch any theatre, excuse me, which is unfortunate because I just love it. I noticed that Caleb Plant beat Caleb Truax last night. And also coming up next week, the beginning of more domestic action, as there's a Commonwealth and a European bantamweight title fight. Commonwealth is it lightweight, in Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. MTK having shifted it there in order to get it on, and it's Lee McGregor's opportunity, Scottish fighter, to actually achieve a European title to add to his British and Commonwealth ones. For Ringside Report, been writing about the dangerous nature of some of the Republican nominations for committees, particularly the education one, the woman Green, who's a QAnon conspiracist, having got onto that. And of course we remember the House of Un-American Activities being probably the most corrupt example of how people who shouldn't get power and use that influence in a negative manner. Talking of which, also the committee that met this week in order to decide whether Livingston manager David Martindale was a fit and proper person. Have a look at that. And Dick Campbell, a man of many clubs, more clubs than Jack Nicklaus is what people would normally posit, but he was talking this week about his time in the game, and also I've stuck him in front of a group of kindergarten kids for this week's scurrilous attack in all things Scottish Fitba. But and the other things that I've been writing, I've been working quite hard on a review of Into the Bear Pit, the Craig White, I would hesitate to call it an autobiography. It's a long letter of justification, and I'm hopeful that I'll get that into somewhere that will take it. It's not for the Scottish Football Supporters Association, but 500-word article on Malawi and their trip out there is, and that's a way for edit. The book is almost complete. We are down to 2 of the 42 clubs not having submitted. I think it's Queen's Park and Brecon City. I can understand why in Brecon City there might be people running for the hills not wanting to talk about their beloved club, but we are close to having that ready to go to publication. It's going to be great. So the 2 things this week are based on 2 individuals, Ron Evans and Mark Williamson. I got a phone call yesterday, I think, from Ron's son Glenn to tell me that Ron had sadly passed away during the week. Ron was a neighbour of ours way back when we lived in Raithhill and Ayr. What a lovely man he was, but that was only the half of it. He was a character, a man with a passion for Scottish rugby, a volunteer, a worker, a man who sought out any opportunity to promote the game that he loved, but also somebody who tried to make a living from it. And I often think of Ron when I think of the time that I spent at Kick Talk with Chris Kane, trying to find a way of making something out of football. Chris Kane wasn't a footballing person, wasn't somebody who had a deep love for the game, but thought that there was a possibility of us making something out of reporting on games underneath the Premiership. It's something which you see now clubs taking on. And one of the things that after having spoke to Glenn, I went away and I looked at some of the obituaries and some of the comments from people within the game with a deep affection for Ron, not just for him as a person, but for the effect that he had. He was the Associated Press of Scottish Rugby. He got all the results. He would phone people up. I can remember talking to him many years ago about how he would spend his weekends just phoning around trying to get the results and trying to get them to the people who needed them. In a game like rugby, which has a national profile but an underbelly of volunteers and people who are deeply passionate about following the game, not as just as supporters, but people who keep small clubs alive, the likes of Ron Evans is an absolutely vital part of making sure that that sport has a profile that recognises not just the national game, but the wee game, the game that is the lifeblood of it, that is the beginnings and the middles and not often the ends, because the only thing we're interested in is whether or not Scottish rugby is beating England at Twickenham. But the fact is that without people like Ron, then there wouldn't be anything that we could celebrate at Twickenham. So I was sorry to hear of his passing, but what a tremendous servant and what a tremendous effect. It led me to quite an astonishing revelation during the week, in that my old mate Mark Williamson is the Burns Humanitarian Award winner of 2021 because of his work with Sweet for Addicts. I met Mark, Harry Mulvina, John Murtagh once in Glasgow to sit down and discuss the creation, the formation of a theatre company, which we kicked about. We went to the Scottish Charity Regulator to call it Sweet FA. They said it was potentially open to being quite the wrong type of message. Of course, Sweet FA is what addicts like myself use in order to treat our addiction. Nothing. So I eventually come up with Sweet for Addicts. We opened with a David Mamet play at G12 in Gilmer Hill. And since then, that's the company that we took down to London and the West End. That's the company that went to Birmingham for the National Cocaine Anonymous convention with Dr. Bill W. and Dr. Bob, an American play that we adopted as the way of getting money through the door, firstly, but secondly, perhaps even more importantly, telling the story of how AA was founded. And we performed in London on the 75th anniversary of the founding of Alcoholics Anonymous. So for Mark to get this honour, I think, is testimony not just to his work, but to the work of, and he was clear that it was as well in his acceptance speech, the work of so many people who have come, not me, but others, who have benefited from using the arts as part of their addiction therapy. And Mark's work's not just been with Sweet for Addicts. He has worked at Jericho House in Greenock. He has worked in other rehabs in the centre of the city using theatre and drama. I went to one of his pantos a few years ago, which was at the Maryhill Halls, the Borough Halls, which was great, absolutely fantastic. Took Kira and Leila. So hearty congratulations to a man thoroughly deserving of an honour, who doesn't have that silver spoon in his mouth and he doesn't have a national profile. And to see Jerry Taylor, my old mate down in there, being the presenter of it, and Ken O'Hara, with whom I performed in Romeo and Juliet way back at Craigie College, God, decades literally ago. It was such a wee treat. So two people who, Mark and Ron, who gave and give in ways that ought to be recognised in any kind of honour system, which is of a credit to the communities that it's meant to represent. So, quite a week. So, next week, still in lockdown, still here, still cold, still a frosty morning. But until then, bye for now.